just set off a chain reaction of like 10 mouse traps. They were all lined up next to each other and my bag fell on it and they all started popping in the air. That would have been funny to get on film.
This video is brought to you by Sporlan. Quality, integrity, and tradition.
Okay, we got a bank of glycol units. We got 2 of them, and they're complaining that one of them's not working. Pretty sure it's this one that says 57 because the condensing unit's not running. There is a reset on the pressure control. It does nothing. This guy definitely has a dirty condenser. It's got a filter on it, but it's a plug-o. A nice array of mouse traps there. And the condenser doesn't look too bad. So we need to get into this control and see if we're actually calling for cooling right now. I am checking across the contacts on the pressure control and I have nothing, which means the contact is not open. So it's not a high pressure issue or a low pressure issue for that matter. So we need to see where the power comes from that controller down in there, and it's like a rat's nest of wires in there. Look at like the way they make these units, like you can't even get that out because of the orientation of everything. It's stupid. Here's a plug for the compressor. I'll test on that real quick. And there's no power at that plug, which is means that the controller is not sending power. So you only have this power switch and the temperature controller is the next thing. So we got to get in that box. I kind of pulled it out. Hopefully nothing shorts out. And I got to get in there and find the contacts for the compressor. See if we can figure out which one's which. It looks like 4 and 5 is my compressor contact. So we'll test across that switch. So it's really difficult to get in there, but I've got 120 volt power coming into this controller and I have nothing leaving the controller. But the controller has a decimal below the snowflake, which means that it's calling for cooling. So we've got a bad controller. Sucks, I don't have one of those right now, but oh well, we'll go get one. I went ahead and jumped, sorry it scared me, that thing. I pulled the power wires and wire nutted them together, and we're gonna turn it on right now. And we fired up, so we're running now. What I'm gonna do is go get a new control. So it was hard for me to film it, but what I did was I verified we had 120 volts coming into the control, and then I checked across the contact. The contact was open, but the control indicated on the front of it that it was calling for cooling via the little snowflake thing. So that control is bad. There's other issues though too, man. This capillary tube's about to rub out. It's a pain in the butt. I'm gonna have to talk to him about changing that pressure control. It's literally about to run out of refrigerant because the cap tube's almost worn through, which sucks. Is that many mouse traps really necessary? That's ridiculous. All right, this thing's been running. I got the new control. It's at 40 degrees. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna clean this area out really quick before customers get in the building. I'm just gonna blow it all out, blow the condensers out, because mostly it's just dust. And then that way I can work up here a little bit better. Start by clearing this thing. Not going to be happy with me because there's dust everywhere. I'm going to get yelled at, but it's got to be done. I pulled this side cover off to access the sensor for the glycol. This thing is still running since I got back, so it's at 38 degrees right now, but that's because I have it jumped out. So I'm going to start doing things while I continue to let it run because they're about to open and we want them to be able to sell as much beer as possible. So I'm going to start running the sensor and then we'll figure everything out after I get that ran. Because again, the temperature doesn't matter right now because I have it bypassed. So, but I got everything kind of cleaned up, blown it out pretty good. So still some stuff here and there. It's kind of tight up here too. I don't have a lot of room. So you got a camera sitting up there too. But it's like I've got 1 foot on a ladder, like leaning over here. So it's kind of a tricky situation. Just got a universal 120 volt Dixel. It's an XR60. You can do a lot of things with these. This one comes with 2 sensors, but we're only going to use 1. You know, after looking at this Dixel sensor, this is not, I don't know if this is quite rated to be immersed in water. I might try to reuse their sensor if it'll work. I don't know if it's the same type. Their sensor's pretty encapsulated, pretty good, meant to be submerged, so I'm gonna try to see if I can reuse that. It's really tight in here. I was looking at the contact rating on this controller just to be safe, and it's rated for 20 amps. If you use this contact right here, we're gonna use load 1, and that's rated for 20 amps. So I brought an auxiliary relay just in case, but it's also rated for 20 amps, so I don't see the difference here. So we're just gonna go ahead and use this, and I'm gonna try to hook their sensor up to it and see if it reads correctly. But yeah, it's pretty tight in here. I turned off power to the unit for now, and we're just gonna get it wired in. So it's powered up, but it's not quite reading the accurate temperature yet, so I'm gonna give it a minute and make sure the pumps were off. So it could be that it's gonna take a minute, or we might just have to change it. We'll have to see. We're gonna give it a few minutes. I don't have the compressor running as of yet. I wanna see the temp drop. I'm in the process of changing the probe because it wasn't reading accurately, and in the process my hands are covered in this glycol and starting to get sticky. These Viper wipes are bitching for cleaning that stuff off. They'll help to get all that stuff off, and then the way I can actually work better. So at this point we're gonna let it run for a bit, and I'm gonna get ready to change that dual pressure control. And when I get over there, I'll show you guys why it's about to fail. So, and then as far as this probe goes, I've got it to where it's set perfectly in that stream. There's a little clip I'm trying to get clipped in. So I just went through the programming parameters and deleted the defrosts, because this can be the control came factory set with defrost in it, and I turned that off because we don't need any defrost. And our set point is 27 with a 4 degree. No, that's a little too high. We're gonna change the differential to 3 degrees. But yeah, so we'll be set for 27. So we're coming down, and I'm gonna move my tools around, and then we'll get over here and work on that pressure control. It's super tight in here, but what I'm looking at is, oh, look at this. Look at that spot right there. You can see where it hasn't rubbed out yet, but if I bend it hard enough, it'll rub out, and that's the high pressure side. So it's about to rub out. We're gonna go ahead and get that guy replaced. Luckily this has a receiver, so I'm gonna be able to do a pump down on it. Luckily on the high side, I didn't think I was gonna be able to take it off, but I can, because this fitting right here is just an extension, and it should have a Schrader depressor in this side right here. So I should be able to twist this off with pressure still in the high side. That's the hope. Yep, it worked out. So that had the Schrader depressor in it, so I was able to just twist it off. And then the low side, I'm just gonna pump it down at the receiver and do a hot swap. But look at, they had covered that thing in leak lock. We'll make sure we use Nylog, and I'll scrape off all that old leak lock. I just cut myself with the leak lock. That's funny. Literally just sliced my hand trying to pull the leak lock off. That won't happen with Nylog. Best refrigeration bandage you can find. I'm sure the glue that's in the electrical tape is bad for me and stuff, but hey, when you're working and you don't have time to go get a Band-Aid, that works perfect. Things started leaking all over the place, so. You know, this thing takes a couple times to reset. It finally reset, but I think we might have a bad compressor. So I've got the pressure control jumped out. Let's see if we pull down and if we can pull into a vacuum. I've got it pumped down, so the valves in the compressor should not be bleeding by. Yeah, we're pumped down all the way. So I'm gonna shut the compressor off here in a minute, and if it rises really fast, that's gonna indicate a bad suction read in the compressor. We're gonna let it run for another minute. It's a good sign that it's pulling down. Yeah, that's low enough. So I'm gonna power it down, and that really shouldn't rise a lot. Maybe a little bit, but. Okay, compressor's off. Man, we got a compressor that's going bad. It shouldn't be rising that fast. Because it should be stopped coming out of the receiver right here. There should be no refrigerant in here, and the compressor basically between the discharge reed and the suction reed should not be allowing gas to bypass through. There's nothing else in this system that would allow gas to bypass through. That's not good. They got problems here, which makes me wonder if I don't know if this unit's worth all these repairs. I might have to make a phone call. Well, one thing leads to another. So yeah, my suction pressure should not rise up to 92 psi. Yeah, shouldn't. There's a problem there. So I already talked to the facilities department. They told me just to go ahead and pick up a compressor and change it. So looks like we're doing a lot more. Boy. All right, well, we're gonna get it up and running. Just to be safe, I really cranked down on that valve to make sure that it's not leaking by. And the compressor, I mean, everything's screaming. The thing just keeps going off on internal overload when it tries to restart. And about the 4th restart, it'll usually start up. So there it goes to try it again. It went off on overload. We're gonna give it one more shot. I'm gonna let it pump down again just to be safe. Like I said, I already called the facilities department. They didn't even ask me for pricing. They said just do it. So I'll get my recovery machine. I have someone actually bringing the compressor to me right now. I'll get my recovery machine. We'll pull the charge real quick and hopefully have this out by the time the person gets here with the, there it goes, it just started. So hopefully we'll have it out by the time the compressor gets here. So we're watching it right now. We're gonna pull into a vacuum. Yeah, that's good enough. I'm not going to waste any more time with the vacuum. So we're going to shut it off and it should not rise. All right, I just shut it off. So 1-2 psi, no big deal. But when it rises almost all the way up to equalizing, that's a problem. So let's give it a minute and see if it continues. It's usually you can feel it in the compressor too, but it's hard because this thing's pumps are running, so it's hard to tell. Did I just lose connection? There we go. Yeah, we're still rising. Okay, yeah, I'm confirmed, so I'm gonna get this recovered. Man, it is super tight up here too. Gauge is on, refrigerant's not 410, but it's irrelevant because, all right, leave this one loose. Open this up. Make sure that's closed. Open this up. Open this up. Okay. We're good there. We should be, once I hit recover mode, it's going to start leaking out of this. So I'm going to put it on like that. There we go. Just purging. Make sure we're getting all the air out of the lines. Okay. Good. I know this unit's not going to overcome the charge of the tank, so I don't have a scale under it. This tank is pretty much empty. I think it might have a pound of 404 in it, so got oil all over my hands. Let's hit start. Shouldn't take long at all. I'm gonna let it keep running. The field piece pump will shut off by itself when it's in a vacuum. So the really cool feature that I like is this thing shuts off when it's ready, and if I hit start again, it'll pull down even lower and automatically shut off again. So I like the field piece vacuum pump for that. It's a nice little pump. All right, we're pretty much done. I'm just gonna let it shut off again, and then we'll pull this thing apart. Man, it is tight up here. I'm gonna get my ass handed to me just trying to get the bolts out of this compressor. I got 3 out. I got to get the one underneath this box now. Frustrating, man. There's like no room to get under there. I have to take the whole box off. Whew. All right, well, we're already recovered, so. And I ended up getting the electrical box off. I don't know if the new one's gonna come with that or not. I ended up getting all the bolts out. condenser fan motor unwired, the plug for the compressor. Now I'm trying to get this roto-lock loose. Man, is it tight. I hope I can get the new one on. I really don't want to have to change that roto-lock, because that doesn't look like it's going to be fun to change. We are out. Everything's unsweat. I'm going to get the compressor out of here. I got to stand up, move it, and then I'll come in and look at that roto-lock valve and then do the pressure control, and then we'll get to the new compressor after that. This swivel, remember, has a Schrader depressor right there, and it'll depress that Schrader, and what it does is, you know, as long as you don't have a bad compressor, it allows someone to change the pressure control on the high side without having to recover all the gas. So we're going to go ahead and put that back on. So the important thing about this is we're going to use Nylog, okay? Nylog is just a thread lubricant. Oh, you know what? I need to brush that off a little bit. I have a steel brush right here. Try to brush off some of that Blue Death leak lock crap. Alright, so what we're going to do is just put a drop of Nylog on there. It doesn't take much, okay? And then we're going to slowly thread this guy on just a little bit. And then what we're going to do is take the Nylog and put it right here. Okay, that's just the mating surface. And I'm just spinning it, just like that. Okay, that's the mating surface of the flare nut. And you want the Nylog there to help it stay lubricated so it doesn't twist and grab and rip it. So I'm going to go ahead and torque that guy on. Pressure control's in. I just need to tighten up this cord lock that I put on the bottom to protect the wires. I've got it set. I've kind of got it routed the way that I'm going to run it, so that way the lines aren't rubbing into each other. And I'm going to go ahead and bring the compressor in and start setting that. I got this guy tightened on, ready to put the pressure control on that bad boy. We're going to get this roto-lock on down here. So what we're going to do is just put a drop of Nylog on the threads, okay? You put a drop of Nylog right here, and then you're going to bring the fitting back up and lubricate the mating surface, okay? So the whole purpose of the Nylog right here, I'll put a little bit more right here, is just so that way the flare nut doesn't grab and twist the copper. Now we're going to twist that guy on, and I'm going to torque it down. Here's another little tip. So even though I put Nylog on it, that copper's still going to twist when I torque it down. Okay, so it's loose right now. So what I'm going to do, inevitably, what I don't want to happen is for this to twist all the way back like that when I tighten it on. So what I'm going to do is twist it forward a little bit, torque it down, and like I said, inevitably, it's always going to turn a little bit, okay? So when I torque it down, it's going to straighten this up to where it's going straight up and down. Now it's nice and tight, and you can see it didn't twist back into the motor. Got the roto-lock right here. I like to take a wee bit of Nylog, you don't gotta take much, and just get it on the roto-lock itself. Just lubricate it. You can also set the roto-lock in like a little baggie or something, and I'll put Nylog on it when we get it in there. I just don't want to make a mess right now. Alright, this is the expansion valve right over here, where I put this heat putty back here, the wet rag stuff. So I want to protect the expansion valve when I'm brazing in the sight glass, and I went ahead and changed the sight glass too, just because I was in here. Yeah, so we're ready. I'm going to braze it in real quick. Went ahead and tighten this up, tighten the roto-lock down nice and tight. We need to braze this shut. I don't have a fitting for that, so we'll braze it shut. Man, I'd like to put a fitting. Maybe I'll go try to find one. Everything's brazed in. We're good. And I ended up putting this guy on, so I'm going to put a Schrader in it. And then we're going to get the vacuum running on this guy. I typically advocate for not using a manifold to evacuate the system, but sometimes you just have to. This is a situation where I don't got the room. Everything's tight. I can't get my big hoses up here. So I'm just going to have to evacuate through the manifold and deal with it. So right now I have the gas ballast open until we pull somewhat of a vacuum, and then we'll switch over and shut it and do everything. I got to make sure all these things are closed and all that good stuff. So we are on and running. Sight glass is clear. I put in about 2 pounds so far. So we will see. I like how the on the field piece manifold, it'll read the wireless scale, so you don't have to take the handle out if you don't want to. All right, we're just watching this thing come down in temp. I want to make sure the sight glass stays clear, and I want to see it drop significantly. I'm going to start cleaning up my millions of things I got up in this tiny little spot. Came back out the next day just to follow up on it. I'm working on some ACs. Everything's looking good. We'll jump up there and check the sight glass real quick. Looking good. Sight glass is clear. Customer's happy. So we're good to go on this one. Check the glycol level now that it's down to temp. We're looking good. All right, man. This is good stuff. So we are done with this one.
Okay, so the original service call was on a glycol unit, okay, or a beer line chiller or a power pack unit, whatever you want to call them. But essentially, it's a mini chiller. And what it does is it cools down a fluid that is pumped around the beer lines when they exit the beer walk-in, and it essentially keeps the beer lines cold from the moment it exits the beer walk-in to the moment that it comes out the tap head into your glass, okay? So that fluid is a glycol mixture, so it has water and glycol in it. We usually have the freeze point set 20-ish degrees. We maintain about 26 degrees, something like that, depending on the different beer companies and how they set it up. But we maintain that glycol at about 26 degrees. The whole hope of keeping that glycol as cold as it is to keep the beer below 40 degrees all the way to the moment that it comes out of the beer tap into your cup, okay? If you have high beer temps, then you can potentially have foaming issues and things like that. You can also have foaming issues if the beer gets too cold too, if it starts to freeze the lines, and yeah, it's a whole nother thing. But anyways, once I got out there, there was a whole list of things, okay? We had a dirty condenser, we had a dirty filter. I diagnosed the system to have a bad temperature controller. The contacts had stuck open, basically, okay? After I replaced the temperature controller, I went ahead and started it up. While I was, working on everything, again, whole big picture thing, I noticed that the pressure control had a rub out spot, but it didn't leak refrigerant yet. So I was able to get it running, but then I found that the system wouldn't pump down correctly. Okay, I could tell that something was wrong with the compressor, and when I tried to pump it down to change the dual pressure control because of that rubbed out capillary tube, the compressor immediately shut off on internal overload. And then when I got it to reset, it still wouldn't pull down. And then I showed you guys the pump down test where I pulled it into a vacuum and then the pressures rose again. Okay, so internally the compressor was bypassing from the high side into the low side, and that causes efficiency problems. The other thing I noticed was when I did turn it on, it was taking a really long time to come down to temperature. So, there's a lot of things that I may not have shown in the video, but there was a bunch of red flags. I noticed the compressor was really hot. It was turning on and off on internal overload. It was taking a long time to come down to temp. Just little bits of things. Even that temperature controller could have been a sign of everything. Now, in my opinion, more than likely, this compressor could have lasted a lot longer had we done routine preventative maintenance, kept that condenser clean. More than likely, if the condenser was clean, the unit wouldn't be running the higher current draws and potentially make the temperature controller fail as soon as it did. I mean, it's just kind of one thing after another. So, just as usual, like it happens in my videos all the time, we don't just stop at the symptom, right? Because the symptom was the temperature controller not working, the dirty condenser, the rub out wasn't really a symptom of a dirty condenser, but I mean, you get the point, okay? Big picture diagnoses is the way that I try to look at everything, okay? Because I want to sell the customer on my service. My service costs the customer a lot of money, okay? If I can keep that customer happy and still be able to charge that large amount of money to the customer every single time I go out there, then I am successful. The customer is happy, right? Because they're getting value for the service that I am selling them. And our relationship can continue, okay? Cross my fingers, knock on wood. Most of my customers I maintain for many, many years at a time, okay? Yeah, occasionally I do lose a customer here and there. And most of the time, to be honest with you, the reason why I lose a customer is because of my own fault. I screw up. I do stupid things. I don't pay attention to, employees making mistakes or who knows, different things like that. But inevitably, I try to please the customer as much as possible, but at the same time, I have to stay a profitable business, okay? Yeah, now that I went off on a tangent on that one. So the customer was happy, inevitably, with the repair. You saw at the very end of the video, I went back the next day. Now, another thing is this unit, I noticed the entire time that I was working up there, it was extremely hot. okay, the entire time. And their kitchen air conditioning, they have 2 air conditioners and an evaporative cooler. None of it was working, okay? So that probably added to everything too. So on top of having a dirty condenser, you know, all of that. So when I came back out the next day, I actually spent the entire day up on the roof, of which I'll probably make a video about that soon too, cleaning all their air conditioners, getting everything running as good as possible. There were problems with that stuff too. You know, so again, big picture diagnoses, right? You know, a glycol unit, one thing after another. But on top of that, I noticed it was really hot, and I got them to approve me to come back and go through everything. So I try to be as honest as possible with my customer, try to take care of them, and always trying to look at that big picture, right? Really, really appreciate you guys taking the time to making it to the end of this video. Do me a favor, if you guys are considering purchasing any new tools, check out TrueTechTools.com. If you like their pricing, use my offer code BIGPICTURE, one word. It helps to support the channel because I get a small commission. You guys don't pay anything extra. You guys get 8% off your order. You know, so think about that if you guys want to try to support the channel. It really does help me. And remember, Monday nights, 5 p.m. Pacific time, I go live on YouTube, work permitting, of course, if I can get off work in time. And I talk about these videos, answer questions, and then just kind of talk with you guys in the live chat and kind of interact. So come check it out, okay? That's pretty much it, and we will catch you guys on the next one.